Hello, everyone. Welcome to my program. Today, we're going to talk about the Ching and the chess. Tyler Carden is here. He's my friend. I learned to play chess from him. He's a player and a programmer. I find many similarities between the chess and the I Ching. I would like to share these interesting observations.
Hi, I'm Tyler Carden, and I know some of the terms in chess that we can talk about and draw a comparison with the I Ching. One that Annie pointed out to me was the 64 squares of the chessboard. There is a combination of 8 files and 8 ranks on a chessboard. It is 8 by 8. And there are a total of 64 squares, and that matches the number 64 hexagrams that you can get from a divination.
Probably people need to know a little about the I Ching. It's also known as the Book of Changes. It's one of the oldest texts in the world, and that came from China. The I Ching is known for it has 64 hexagrams, but interestingly, the original one was trigrams, and it only has 8.
So we have that interesting parallel of 8 possible trigrams multiplied by 8 additional trigrams above or below it that results in 64 possibilities, just like chess.
You're a programmer, so you know it's like the 64 bits and the CPU. People know that the computer is a binary system, so is the I Ching. Pretty much consists of 2 lines, the broken line and the straight line. The straight line represents the yang, and the broken line represents the yin. Together, it's the yin and the yang and the universe.
Okay, another parallel I see there is that not only are we dealing with one of the oldest books on the planet, chess is also one of the oldest games on the planet as well. So I think we have some of those commonalities where we're drawing from the experiences of the primitive minds of people from a long time ago.
The black and white in chessboard represents the yin and the yang as well. When you start to play, you play with the white first. So the white represents the yang and the black represents the yin. I was told, Tyler, that the chess was probably invented by an ancient ruler. This Book of Changes was also created by an ancient ruler from China, King Wen, the first king of the Zhou dynasty.
These are very interesting parallels. We also see that both have a foundation on military strategy, on military strategization, where playing chess gives you this ability to forecast, to visualize, to think ahead, to strategize, and to come towards a victory. And that is one of the original use cases of the I Ching is to be used by the emperor for decision making.
Exactly. The power of forecast and divination. When we play chess, I learned from Tyler that you should always think ahead to visualize what's going to happen the next.
One of the most interesting people to me in modern day chess is Dan Heisman. He came up with this concept that's popular called hope chess. Hope chess is moving without fully calculating the consequences. His emphasis on using this term is that you shouldn't make a move having a passive reliance on hope. You need that divination, you need that forecast, you need to know what's going to happen next and not just hope for the best.
What I like about the divination part is that the I Ching, the Book of Changes, will tell you whether you should be aggressive or you should be passive, conserve your energy. Pretty much you either do it or not do it. That's the part of the usefulness of divination. And with the chess, I feel like sometimes you can play aggressively or sometimes you can play defensively. Can you tell me how do you decide which way to play?
Yes, when you decide that you want to play defensively, you're seeing that you're opponent has some kind of threat that they're making against you, and you need to make sure to handle that threat so that you don't end up losing. So if your opponent ends up getting in a better position than you, then you're really going for preservation, you're going for a draw, and you're trying to avoid the loss. If you win, that's the best case scenario, but you're going for at least a draw if possible and avoiding losing.
So it just gives you the best move under circumstances. And it's the same thing with Book of Changes. Each hexagram and each line just tells you a different position you are in and how you should act at that moment. Another thing I find is very interesting is the sequence. When you play the chess, which piece you use to kill, which move you make the first or second, that will make a big difference, right?
Yes, it does. And one of the fascinating things about chess, I would really love to expand on this, on what the implications are with I Ching, is the intermezzo or the in-between move. This is when you have an interjection in the sequence. It might look like the opponent's threatening something and you have to respond immediately, but the response doesn't always have to come immediately. You can make your own counter threat. You can make your own counter move first before you respond to that threat.
Yes, about balance. I Ching is talking about two things. One is to change, always changing dynamic. The same thing in chess, there's always changing. It changes a lot. Each hexagram has its limitations. There are some extremely good hexagrams, like hexagram 11, but everything has a limitation. Owning one hexagram out of the 64, it's all good. You have to know your limitation. It's the same thing when you play the chess, no matter how powerful you are as a queen or how small you are as a pawn, you have your strengths and your limitations at the same time. Am I right?
Yes, and that's why you need to consider all of these pieces' different limitations and have them work together. Those limitations create that balance that you described. You can't just win with a single piece. You need to have multiple pieces coordinating together and acting together.
The king, it will be like hexagram 1, 乾卦, because it's most powerful as the man that rules, the ruler. 乾卦is the same thing. Number 1, it's all like yang. When you have all these powerful yang in 6 lines, interestingly, just like the king, he can only move 1 square each time. No matter how powerful you are, you have your limitations. Use the pawn as an example. The pawn is very small, insignificant, and it's ready to sacrifice. It's most easily to be sacrificed. I think it'll be like 坎卦. 坎卦, it's all water, right? So it's like water in the Book of Changes represent danger. So the pawns will face a lot of danger and to sacrifice for the king. That's the limitation of pawn. But when the pawn become like a pawn chain, and they can be so powerful, and even more dramatically is that survive toward the end, it can be promoted into a powerful queen.
Yes. The true power of the pawn chain is when they're chained together, when they're linked together. If you take the pawn in front, it'll just say, so what? The pawn behind will just replace me. And so that coordination is one of the ways that you compensate for the limitations of the piece. You find a way for them to work together within the limitations and to create that balance on the board.
Each pawn is small, but they have quantity. So when you have 8 of them, they're not small anymore. Eventually, one of them will survive. So that's like 坎卦. 坎卦, normally people think in the Book of Changes will be one of the most dangerous. In Chinese, we say 危机. So when there is a danger, there is an opportunity. They seem to be killed so easily, but once they survive, they are promoted to the queen. They can win the game. And is that right? A lot of times, it's the pawn who decides the final win.
Yes, if you're reaching the end game of a chess game, when you have less and less pieces on the board, the pawns become more significant because they will become the deciding factor. You gain an extra piece by promoting that pawn, so that pawn will be the most important piece on the board.
Danger can lead to opportunities.
That's a good conclusion.